Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special guest tonight. Uh, he just happened to call me up out of the blue. Not really, but David Dubine from the other side of the globe is in his garden, is what he just said, and he's live. And we're going to have a quick chat about climate revolution, the grand solar minimum. Understand, prepare, adapt, and thrive. His new book, which is an ebook available right now down below. If you click the link, it's $12.95. And so far, Dave, we've had hundreds of people buy the book through our links every time we mention it. Uh, the response has been amazing. Everyone says it is absolutely the cutting edge resource that you need for preparedness. Not only that, for the background information on the times that are changing and the times ahead. So, how you doing there, Dave, out in your garden? And what say you about the book and about what are you doing out there in the garden?
Well, just trying to trim everything up and working on the tubes right now. We're trying to retransplant the Gainura, which is like a longevity herb that's more like an Asian spinach. It seems to be bunching up in the tubes, but that's about the experimentation. You know, what works, what doesn't work. And, trying to do an urban garden balcony where things are getting too hot in one section and continually moving and trying to get the plane overhead. The flight pattern's different today because the wind shifted. So whenever the wind shifts, the winds come in different directions over the coast here. But it's all about experimentation. And that's what we talk about in the book too is, all right, here's the basics. Everything's put up by PDF. So we're talking about greenhouses and doing your own beam soil enhancement and whatnot. But we link out to incredible PDFs that have either engineering diagrams for professionals to put things together or DIY. But from that point forward, it's all about encouraging you to go ahead and experiment and start and see what works. Because we've been working with these vertical tubes for, I don't know, a good 6 months now. And we've gone through 7 different types of lettuces, the Gainura, we had mint in there, we had basil, and trying to figure out what works best and what grows fastest for the bang for the buck, really. So we moved to these grow bags because they work better with the potatoes and with the moringa and with the red peppers. And that's what the book's basically about. Is it explains the grand solar minimum at the beginning, what it is, and then why you should care. But the last half of the book is all about preparing and then like putting in action the things that you're reading about or experimenting, how to grow your own food, how to make your own soil, how to prepare the food, how to store it. These are the types of things that are in the book. And thank you for saying that it's a cutting edge, because we did make it a hyperlinked publication where there's more than 300 links in that publication. So you're able, if it talks about a certain thing, a greenhouse, a solar cycle, a Birkeland current, whatever it is, it'll hyperlink you out to the best resources we could find on the net or PDFs so you can do your own research. Don't listen to us. The whole point of the book is try to disprove the book. Try to disprove it. And it's been like that from the beginning. Even in the first few opening paragraphs, we say we want you to try to disprove this book. And nobody has come back yet and disproved it because the science is solid. That's why you should probably pay attention, because repeating cycles in time, we're repeating another cycle, and here we go.
Yeah, and I can't agree with you more, Dave. It's impossible. It's in fact impossible to disprove a cycle, because the reason a cycle exists is because we've proven it's there. And once people realize the fact that the ruse is in plain sight, climate change, they've changed global warming to climate change because the climate has always been changing. And what they should be doing is warning the masses of what happens during these climate change. There's global unrest, there's famine. The empire model unravels, and the power structure that's set up, the powers that be is what they're called. They would never warn the public about this, because they would come and get the powers that be, because the powers that be are not preparing the public. And it is, I believe, every single citizen's responsibility to take this information in, whether you buy the book or not. Do your own research on climate cycles. Do your own research on what's happening with our magnetosphere, and act accordingly. React and adapt. As you say, Adapt 2030, David Dubine, the author of the Climate Revolution book. And he did mention, guys, if you're listening, it's a hyperlink book. And a lot of you keep wanting the hard copy of this. The hard copy of this book would be all about useless, merely a pamphlet explaining the links you're going to go to. If we actually made it hard copy and went to all the links and printed out all of the information, it would be a new Encyclopedia Britannica. Would it not, David?
Yeah, it would be that, but it'd be a multiple volume that you'd have to load in the back of a U-Haul truck or something to that level. And I'm serious when I say that. I'm not being facetious in any way, shape, or form. The amount of hyperlinks going out then allow you to hyperlink to other things. So here's an example. In the preparation part, we were talking about having the 20 easiest to grow and most nutritious root vegetables that grow in wetter and cooler conditions with the grow guides, no less. But inside there, then you can hyperlink to all the other 300 and some species of protein plants, vegetable or vitamin-rich plants, most nutrient-dense plants, easiest to grow, spices, and everything in between. So, I mean, that in itself would be just one single volume off just one link of literally the grow guides to explain to you through the different grow zones around the planet. Or at least probably this is more North American, Canadian, European-centric versus Asia or Africa. But in that grow zone, it'll show you how to grow everything. And this is what we try to do, is bring you the best. It took us longer to find the links to put into that book than it did to actually almost write the book. It was about a week longer to find all the hyperlinks, taking the time to go through. And, we might have gone to 25 different Grow Guide websites before we chose the best one. And that's what we did, because it needs to be the best. If you're going to spend the time to do something, why would you put out a half-ass product? That makes no sense to me. Too Virgo maybe on that. But these cycles coming back, they're real. And, Diamond, I would say that the reason they're not telling a lot of people in preparation is if we all started to grow our own food, look at the ramifications for like you said, the empire system, the ingrained banking system. If we started to grow our own food, not only would our health improve, our minds would improve, our spiritual vibration would improve, but then we would be taking money out of that whole monster system. And once you realize that you can grow your own food and you can be more self-sufficient, you're going to start looking for other things in your life that you can be more self-sufficient. And then that's what the powers that do not want you to break out of the system. So, of course, they're never going to tell you, because you imagine 3 billion people growing their own food. We would only need minimal supermarkets. Imagine 5 billion people growing. Imagine the entire planet's population using every rooftop, every garden, every street walkway to grow food, every balcony to grow food on this planet. We would no longer need that big delivery chain. Agribusiness would go out of business. I mean, not entirely, but they would be greatly diminished, because we just wouldn't need these 5,000-mile delivery chains. If we could grow locally with our own fruits and our own vegetables and our own spices and whatever grows locally. Yeah, they don't want you to get that autonomy, really, of food independence. And I think that's another reason, besides the depopulation event. But I mean, the way the functionings of this whole monster empire are working.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more on that one. I was just about to go look up my Facebook page, Growing Home. The big problem is if we hit a threshold of where 3 to 5% of the civilized world is growing their own food, that's not going to take us there. That's unfortunate. Declining solar activity has been proven, and it's becoming a mainstream topic in mainstream science. NASA and NOAA have changed their tune to the new solar cycle, saying it's going to be weaker than cycle 24. And I'm trying to find your book again here, The Climate Revolution. Now, this book is cutting edge, Dave, because you did your homework, you did your research, and you literally have to do that now, today. You can't be from college 10 years ago and you did your research then. In the last 2 years, more information has come out on the topics we're studying, and that's pertinent to our forecasts, especially, that you need to get this book. You need to know how to grow your own food starting now, and you need to be failing in your local environment now. That's permaculture. Permaculture is the key, and basically you're going to be mimicking the forest systems in your local area. You can only do that successfully if you start growing food, see what's failing, add more biodiversity to your balcony even where you're doing it, maybe add shade screens. You have to watch it happen for a year to adjust. And then the next year you can be better. And then it takes another year to be excellent, and so on and so forth. This is time consuming, and time is running out.
Yeah, that's true. The adjustment, you need to actually make the mistakes to understand where you're going. I mean, we could, starting to use baking soda and water to try to raise the pH on the leaves to keep some of the blight that's on the potatoes growing. I mean, we didn't do that last time, but the sweet potatoes are looking amazing. Russet potato equivalent, we have the white potatoes over here in Asia. They're looking amazing too. They're almost 2 feet tall here on the leaf stems now. Just whatever you're trying to grow, you're going to have to figure it out, because it's definitely going to be too hot, too wet. It's going to die. It's going to get too cold. Something's going to munch on it. The amazing amount of pests, if you try to keep it organic, like we have zero pesticides, trying to use everything natural, because in the world we're moving into, there are going to be breakdowns in the just-in-time delivery system. Absolutely guaranteed. Credit is going to lock up somewhere in the very near future when fiat starts to collapse or constrict, or it's not as highly valued. When you start to look at these things, a lot of pesticides are what give you these higher yields. So when you're coming back to a world where you're not using pesticides and you're trying to couple plants together so they defend each other, or you're using something real simple, baking soda or maybe dishwashing liquid, as long as it's the right time, there's not so many chemicals in there. Again, you think dishwashing soap mixed with water to keep aphids away would be so simple, but what's in your dishwashing liquid? There's a lot of experimentation, a lot of things to think about if you're going to be on the non-pesticide way. And you're going to have to try it again and again and again. And you're going to lose plants. You're going to get some minimal yield. Something's going to come good. And then bingo. Then it takes how many tries? Like we had to reseed our grow tubes out here because it was the wrong kind. It was too hot. It's the wrong season for this lettuce. Well, not following the seasons for the lettuce to grow in a vertical grow tube system that's supposed to be automated. Awesome. It's automated. It does. Timer comes on, water goes through, nutrient mix in, super easy. Press a button. But now you got to think about which plants are going to grow in the right season because the humidity or the temperatures. It's not just throw a seed in, it grows. You got to really experiment with these kind of things. So how many people are willing to do that? I mean, they might if their back's against the wall and they're under duress, but I mean, how many people are just going to take their waking moments where they could choose to watch TV or whatever the hell they do and then come out here, or choose to stay in a balcony and trying to figure it out? I mean, it's a huge change for a lot of people what to do with their free time.
Well, let me inspire the people listening now. And I have some real life experience to share with you right now, but let me just throw out the hypothetical, which is reality. Let's say we reach a tipping point where 3% of the modern world is growing their own food. That 3% will be so healthy, they will stop seeing their doctor and they will slowly come off the pharmaceuticals that are keeping them ill. This is a cascade effect where one pig feeds the other in the multinational corporation system. The ag community is directly connected to the multinational pharmaceutical companies, which are directly connected to the chemical companies, which are now the ag companies, and so on and so forth. It's a revolving door of insanity, pollution, and lies that the sheep have bought into. But if we can slowly change the mindset of the population and compel them to eat healthier food with the micronutrients that they need to help keep them healthy, get their blood pressure in check, to help prevent the swelling diseases, the inflammatory diseases that are keeping everyone sick, that are causing the cancers. People will they will get well from the food that they are learning to grow. They're going to heal the environment. They're going to heal themselves. Mental health problems are going to decrease. Inflammatory disease will decrease. And health and well-being will increase, as well as, dare I say it, a new age, a renaissance of thinking. Go ahead, Dave.
No, say it, man. Say it. Say it loud.
Well, we need more of this. We're actually in a glut. We're in a hole. We're stuck. We've been stuck by the empire model. The entire world is staring in a square. The squares are there to keep you, just like the Romans did, to keep you distracted. Stop being distracted. I ask each and every one of you to unplug from the system like Leah and I did, and David Dubine over there is doing in a certain way. Each and every one of us needs to heal on our own system, but the system has to start now. If you haven't started doing anything, today could be the first day of the rest of your life. The only moment you're alive is this moment that you're hearing me speak. What you're worried about in the future, what you're worried about in the past, those are all fantasies. Fear is an absolute liar. If you want to survive and thrive, live happy, and understand those feelings of connectedness with the universe, all you have to do is get out there and start touching the earth, observing nature, observe the forest systems, and you will begin learning on how you can survive and thrive in the future. The forest is teaching us the animals and the plants and the biome, the insects, the cycle of life, the mycelium. All of this information is teaching us how to be self-sufficient, self-reliant, and completely healthy, because this type of system heals itself. And a lot of people, this is what we should be teaching in schools. We're being taught lies, and it's sickening, not only the mental health of the population, but the physical health. And more importantly, David, I'm about to put out a groundbreaking video documentary about the connection of all these toxins, the multinational corporations, and the sickness that has blossomed starting in 1992, peaking in 96, and has gone straight up since then. This is the incorporation of glyphosate into the modern diet. In 1990, it started being sprayed on crops. In 1996, it was sprayed on all crops and started showing up in wheat. That's when celiac disease, anal, bladder, stomach cancers all exploded, dementia, Lou Gehrig's disease, and on and on. There is a direct connection between the pharmaceutical companies, the chemical corporations, yes, and pesticides and your food and the health of the entire world. And I'm going to put that documentary out there, which will probably demonetized in just about a month. And I did this about 4 years ago, Dave, but nobody wanted to see it. But I believe that the time is right now for a new version of that with new information to blow the hole open on what is actually happening to the human population.
Yeah, now with that said, those of you listening, when the economy contracts, people are going to start to go for the cheaper foods. Now, when incorporated in these cheaper foods, these more factory processed foods versus fresh foods, because, you know, fresh foods cost much more than what you can get out of a box in a supermarket. And mark my words, as this economy constricts, because economy constricts every grand solar minimum. And as it does, people are going to switch to the lower price foods first, and that's going to be their first means to try to still stay alive, save money, have their paychecks stretch out so they can feed their families. But what they're going to do is they're going to be choosing more, so I would say, horrible, nutrient-less desert-type foods that are like a nutrient desert or a vitamin desert that have nothing in it. It'll fill your belly, awesome, but there'll be nothing in it. And you can see this type of whatever it would be ramp up again, because there's going to be a mass shift to cheaper food in the beginning. And that's what we need to be thinking about, too, is when the economy starts to contract severely. I'm not talking about a stock market contracting 25%. That's too small. We're talking about something down 90% across the entire planet where its credit locks up. And people just suddenly think about 2008 and 9 times about 50. Somewhere in that range will be the direction we're going with the economic contraction. You can see why the credit system might have difficulty holding itself together. And what if your fiat currency isn't accepted? Like, this whole international trade will slow down. It'll be more regional. But that's where cryptocurrency might come in. That's a whole topic for a different day. But we'll need new mediums for buy, sell, trade as well. So you can see the whole progression of this moving, and it all ends up with food, and food. Because food is the society. If people don't have enough food, they get very angry. And again, you can see, why has this police state been unfurled since 9/11? They knew it was coming. They needed an excuse. Because if they were putting out the police state with all the cameras, militarized police, etc., across the nation, with no provocation, no explanation, no excuses, people would ask a lot of questions. But then 9/11 rolls along, and then boom, we get this entire rollout of the police state for the last 20 years. And you know what? It's ready right now. Guess what? This grand solar minimum and food cost losses and price increases and possible social unrest is going to happen. We're starting right now. Isn't that coincidence? That is so coincidental, isn't it? Wow. I'm so glad they're prepared to help us. And now you can hear my sarcasm.
Well, let me just bring you back to the solution, and we'll end it on the solution, and that's growing home. And this is a project that I started in one of the poorest areas of the inner city in Mantua in Philadelphia. And 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I just drove out to the poorest lot on the corner of the poorest place and started gardening. I started gardening, apparently to the disdain of the community, David. And so then I went, because I have professional organizing experience, I canvassed the whole community. For a square mile, I knocked on every door. And 80% of the people either wanted to kill me or shoot me, but 20% of them listened to me. And thankfully, that was every 10th door. Someone listened. And they were skeptical, but they were like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. You want to take all the vacant lots in this shithole and grow food that we can eat on it for free? That sounds brilliant. I don't believe you. And they slammed the door in my face. What you're looking at here, folks, is a picture of that community exactly 1 year after I started knocking on the doors. And what we had at that point was thousands of nonprofit, huge corporations in Center City, Philadelphia, trying to glom onto our project. They wanted to fund it. We had tens of thousands of dollars flowing into the poorest community in Philadelphia, and they were growing fresh, organic food and learning what that means. They were growing collard beans and corn. They grew squash. They had bees, and there was more. There was more abundance in this community that has ever been there for decades, and it's going on till today. And the reason is that these communities are one of the ones that are most stricken by the food deserts. They have no access to fresh food whatsoever. And not only that, the poorest communities where most people in the world live have no access to the real information. And after I went into this community and made friends with them and taught them the truth and shared with them my knowledge and how easy it is to grow food on these lots, there was a blossoming of people that were happy and feeling better about themselves, and they grew a new home. They grew a new home in Mantua, and you can grow a new home where you are. And it all starts with planting a seed. You have to plant that seed. If you don't, look at this concrete jungle where we're planting here. You can't see this picture, David, but I'm sure I painted an excellent picture. So it's not all doom and gloom. You can take charge of your life, be self-resilient, self-reliant. You can go off-grid. If you're in a city, you can start to opt out of society and provide 10%, 20% of your food, growing it on your balcony. You need to start now, because the only way you're succeeding is if you're failing in farming. And that's my final word. What say you, Mr. Dubine?
Yeah, and I'm gonna ride on top of your point there for a second, in that what they're expecting is some of the lower strata of the society to be the first that are coming. Let's say the rioters to go look for food, or approach the distribution centers, or start smash and grabbing out of supermarkets. That's planned already. This bottom 10% of the society's earners to be the ones that cause the trouble, to be able to usher in, it's problem, reaction, solution. So they're already creating the problem. So they know the outcome of what's going to happen in these cities with this low income areas that you're talking about. Now, if you start to get them to grow food and be able to supply their own food, that suddenly whacks the knees out of what was anticipated for the problem, reaction, solution. But it would need to be across the entire nation, in every city like that. Every place that is an economic desert in there, along with a nutrition desert, have to go in there and get everybody on board in all the cities across America to be able to then thwart that whole. They're counting on those exact people to be the ones to cause the trouble first, to then give the authorization to say, see, we need the police state now, we need martial law now, we need all these control mechanisms now, because look at all the trouble that people are causing because of food. We need to protect all the food. We need to do this for food. It's not unsafe for food. You can already see their playbook. It's so visible. It's like they just put the book out in front of you, and as long as you got a thinking mind, you can turn the pages. But that is a great idea, to be able to get these inner city areas that have been neglected and left behind in our societies. I mean, people really want to make change, but they get thwarted by ridiculous politics and infighting in the Congress and everything. Why can't we go ahead and help our people in our own country? Why do we need to keep infighting and oh, you're red, you're blue? Why does all this fighting take place? Why is nothing ever getting done? But well, we have to come back to the individual again. Because if the government can't take care of us, it's down to your own sovereignty. You're going to have to do it yourself. Because sure as hell, the government's not warning you about or even explaining to you the grand solar minimum. Although there's a new report out, Diamond, I'll tell you, somebody, Dennis, sent me this yesterday, talking about now they're saying the sun is an actual plasma ball, a plasma spheroid. It's not internally combusting. So this came out yesterday, and I haven't read into it, but I was like, gee, isn't that convenient timing enough to explain away the grand solar minimum? So as the temperatures drop on the planet, they're going to have to explain it away to you. They're going to have to explain away this July snow. What if it's July and August snow, and it starts to do this every year, and more crops are lost? They're going to have to come clean at some point. But here, I think this is the first drop in the bucket. Isn't it convenient? They're saying now the sun's a plasma. Oh, now we need to rework everything we knew about the sun. It just drops into the timeline of, oh, we got to rework everything about the sun. Oh, it's electric. Oh, it has cycles. Oh, we're going to have some food problems on the planet. Sorry, the science really wasn't settled like we said. We just learned a bunch of new stuff. But it all fits how they're going to try to move the narrative. Shifting the narrative right now. They're shifting the narrative right now.
I have some good news for you, David. 5 years ago, people like me and millions of others worldwide have been working on changing this inner city narrative. And every major city in the United States and many cities worldwide, we have people interacting with these poorest communities. And the reason is the resources are out there to change these communities into defunct, devoid, food devoid deserts into resilient, self-sustaining communities. And that is why we had this response here in the poorest community in Philadelphia 5 years ago in Mantua. It's going on today in all the communities throughout Philadelphia. There are community gardens that are growing organically. They're learning about permaculture. They're learning about self-reliance and self-resilience. They're learning that the forest around the city of Philadelphia holds wild edibles. And this is happening all around the world spontaneously. I believe it has a little bit to do with the Yuga cycle, the raising of the vibration, but more importantly, these people are not sharing the information with their neighbors. They're keeping it for themselves, as they should. In an anarchist model, this is yours. You developed it. You can be self-resilient and self-reliant. Learn from the people that are learning in the most difficult places on earth how to grow food. If you don't know where to start, buy The Climate Revolution by David Dubine and friends, Bill Porter and his son. I can't implore you enough. If you can't afford $12.95 and you send me an email at oppenheimerranch@gmail.com, I'll buy you the book. I will do that for you. I have no problem, because my purpose here doing the show, calling David Dubine on the other side of the planet, who's probably out there. It's his sun sets. I don't even know what time it is. Or the sun is just rising. It's probably early in the morning. He's about to go to work, and it's already tomorrow, for God's sakes. We're here to help you. We're not here to scare you. We're here to prepare you. Proper prior planning prevents piss poor performance. Start planning food now. Do you have any parting words? I can't say enough about the book. And please get it. We're about to do a whole series over here at the ranch. I'm flying Matt Powers in, and we're going to do a permaculture series, because I even talked to my neighbor, who's a friend of the channel. She doesn't know how to improve her soils. She's watched many of my videos, your videos, Ice Age Farmer. We talk about this. And there's tons of other resources that talk about it on the web on how to improve your soils. You just have to go to YouTube and say how to improve the soil. But they're scared. They don't know how to actually do it. So what Matt and I are going to do is prepare Permaculture for Dummies video. It'll be like 12 or 20 hours for a very nominal cost. You guys can watch hours and hours of Diamond and Matt Powers. And we're going to walk you through how to make your own EM1, how to improve your soil, how to do a micro garden on your patio. And we're actually going to go out here to some of the people that live in Pagosa that are scared to do this stuff because they don't want to get it wrong. That's the biggest thing. People don't want to do it wrong. They don't want to fail. You have to fail. Listen to me. If you don't fail, you won't know what to not do again. Trust me. You want to know what not to do. Because when it becomes crunch time, folks, and you need to do this to live, you're going to want to be comfortable in saying, oh my God, let's just blow this up 10, we'll scale it up 100 times. We'll be able to feed everyone. That gives you peace of mind. That gives you self-resilience. And that allows you to stick that middle finger up to the powers that be and say, I never needed you.
Yeah, that's a good one. That soil enhancement. And again, if you could, think about indoor shipping containers like Chris Thoreau, living up in BC, freezing cold in the winter, and they're still growing like basil and lettuce inside that container because they're doing it the right way. Ventilation, temperature controlled. There's a million solutions. Beam, the soil, and you can make your own microbe reactor. And it's very simple to do. It costs like less than $50, and you're able to, all these solutions are out there. It's just trying to implement them, get them so you get a sort of a bicycle chain of one day you do this thing, the next day you do that thing, and then you come back in a cycle again. I'm talking about cycles. How often are you watering? How often are you fertilizing? How often are you transplanting? How often are you doing something in the whole cycle of it, the composting and everything in between? It's just more of a cycle. Just turn your life into a cycle of coming out and spending an hour or two each day to do something while you're growing the plants. I mean, Diamond, I'll watch your video. I'll buy it from you. I'm interested in what you got there as a personal plug. I am interested in that too. In the book we talk about that. That's great. But Diamond, you help us write part of that, the intro there, the preface and explaining why we need to start thinking about these things. But now, to have a video series that would couple on top of that book for at least that part of the whole solutions section. That's what we need right now. Like when I go back to Tennessee, we're going to be putting in something like the earth battery, if you will. So as we dig that out and dig the area deep and put the hoses down and put the wound tubing, I'm going to go through that to show you what can be done with simple fans to be able to create heat to keep your greenhouse warm in the wintertime by using the natural earth. And again, that doesn't cost too much to do it comparatively to running a heater or buying the natural gas the whole winter to keep the temperature the same. Why not use the free thing called the Earth's dirt? Go down. All the free stuff the Earth offers, like a magnetic field, we could use magnets to push off each other and spin a spindle and charge an alternator, which then could fill a battery. As a magnetic field of the Earth is free. We just need magnets, and then we can make power. Why is this hidden from us? Why is it discouraged that we would make such devices? Why are we threatened when we try to talk about making such devices? This is what I don't understand. There's a lot of stuff free for us, but again, it all comes back to that control mechanism of you can't live for free. You got to pay. We got to get the tax every time you purchase an item that you could get for free. And it's a damn feedback loop again and again of just control and money and dependence on a system, because when the system breaks down, which it does every grand solar minimum, nobody's going to be ready. Very few will be ready. There's going to be very, very few people ready for this change.
Oh, yeah. Those that watch the channel, mine and yours and friends of ours, they will be ready. And the reason why they don't tell you about this free stuff that's cutting edge and it's becoming more and more accessible for almost no money is because it cuts at their bottom line. We're about to shut these multinational corporations. I started with fighting against Monsanto. The whole world now knows about GMOs, and that tiny little bit of people that are taking heed are growing their own food. We need to increase this every year tenfold. We need to build resilient communities. We need to show people how simple it is. And in fact, I love your entire experiment with earth tubes. We have implemented almost all of the geothermal technologies that exist here at the ranch, and we're going to finish it up at the end of the summer here, finishing off our earth tube section where we actually installed some of the cheapest earth tubes possible, where we've cut down the amount of actual tubing you need for maximum performance in our house. And we only could do this because of other experimentation with other climate batteries and other tubes we already used. So by the end of this year, Oppenheimer Ranch will have broken down every type of geothermal, low-cost earth tube alternative to modern-day technology. And what you're going to find is that for pennies on the dollar, you can do better than the multinational corporations are leading you to believe. Now, if you incorporate natural building, which Alosha Linoff and I have talked about extensively on the channel, we'll be talking, Matt Powers and I, about the full package on our info documentary, we're going to be talking about geothermal energy, earth building, permaculture, and how all those solutions together can allow you to step away from the current model, be completely self-resilient, self-reliant, independent from the system, while you also interact with the system. And Leah and I called this 5 years ago opting out. And it's taken us 5 years to understand how to opt out. And this documentary series that Matt Powers and I do this month is going to teach each and every person in layman's terms. I mean, you don't even need the grade 10 here, and you will be able to survive and thrive in the future, opt out of society, be 100% off grid, growing your own food, making your own energy, recycling all of your biodegradables, including your poop, into one system of brilliance, abundance, and micronutrients that keeps you healthy, happy, and alive, and also gives you time to go explore nature. We're talking forest bathing. You will never be so happy after you watch this infomentary. And not only that, if you need to get started, definitely get The Climate Revolution by DuBine, Bill Porter and his son, because this is the beginning point. This is the culmination of all of the studies, all of the information that we have gleaned from our interviews, from our research, from the time just existing in this realm. We have the answers now for you, the best answers. We're not saying we know everything. We will give you the places to start, because each and every one of you will glean the answers that you need individually. And that's how it works. I can't thank you enough, David, for coming on tonight while you're in your garden. Do you have any parting words for our guests?
Yeah, I do. Now think about, Diamond, that course that you're putting out is going to save people years, because think about it. When you have a problem with your computer and something is not working, most people go online and then they find somebody else who already figured out the problem. And when they have something real simple, like your folders won't show up correctly or whatnot, or your image won't preview, you go in, you look, and it takes you like 3 clicks because somebody else did it. But you to figure it out yourself is going to take multiple hours, if not a day or more, just to figure that one little simple problem. So these kind of courses here that are already done of people who made the mistakes, went through it, had years on the ground to practice it, and now have perfected it enough to show you what to do. I mean, think how much of a learning curve save that is. Like how much you're saving time by buying that. It's not about you're getting the skill set to be able to use yourself. You're learning from a master, and then B, you're saving the time. So think about, just for a few dollars, you're able to save 4.5 years of your life making mistakes. And you know how much money it would cost you to spend and make mistakes, and like, oh, we put it in the wrong place, buried it in the wrong place, we planted it in the wrong place, and then replant and wait for the time and the money for the whatever infrastructure you put in there. Or yeah, it's all about saving the time and speeding up that learning curve like exponentially. And that's really what you're buying, is a time savings and the exponential the rollout of the, because when you get the courses and you're learning like this, like I interviewed Alocia as well. It's not like they make you make your own mistakes. They've already perfected the method, so they walk you through it step by step. So your finished product is already a perfected product. It's not like you're going to finish it up and it's going to be a mistake because somebody else has already done it perfectly like 50, 100 times, and then they're showing you what to do. So yeah, good on you, Diamond. Like I say, I'm interested in that course too. I want to see what you got there.
Yeah, that's brilliant. We already fucked it up, so why should you? So that's the only curse word I used in this video tonight. And I apologize, but not really, because we're all about here to prepare you. Proper prior planning prevents piss poor performance in the future we're heading into, which is one of climate change. The climate has been changing in a cyclic fashion for hundreds of millions of years. I'm a paleoclimatologist. I can show you the data. I can show you long-term graphs. I can show you when CO2 was 2,300 parts per million. And I guarantee no one was scared about that level. Someone's actually, I think, calling in here, or either that or we lost David. David, are you still there?
No. Yeah, I still am. Yeah, and I'm interested in the longer term cycles you're talking about, because, I hate the way the IPCC wrangles us into everything's been warming for the last 150 years. You're the cause. But then they don't even look at the 2,000-year Greenland Ice Core Project drilling core to see what the temperature was over the last 2,000 years, the natural undulations, up 2 degrees, down 3, up 3, up 2, down 2, down 1, down up. It's an undulation anyway. How do they miss that over the last 2,000 years? Why can we only look at climate in terms of the last 150? And then when you start looking at it in terms of 4,000, 6,000, 8,000, 12,000, 12,500, you get a whole different glimpse of history and how our societies have evolved or collapsed based on what the climate's doing, based on what the sun's doing. And you can start to get a real good picture of how all this is interconnected. But you got a way better idea on that than I do.
Yeah, and the unfortunate thing, folks, if you're listening, is we're sitting on a multiplicity of cycle interfaces where they all come together. The sun's 400-year grand solar minimum oscillation cancellation is happening in the next 4 decades. At the same time, the 200-year grand minimum cycle comes into phase. At the same time, the 1,000-year bond cycle comes into superphase. Now, not a lot of people understand the bond cycle. It's about 1,000 years, and it is controlled not only by the sun, but extragalactic. It's coming from the center of the Milky Way, from those plasmoids, which some call black holes. That's another cycle, which is 1,000-year super cycle. It ended the Roman period. It ended the Mycenaean period, and on and on. So we're on a 1,000-year cycle, a 400-year cycle, and a 200-year cycle, coupled with the 10-year solar minimum right now. And on top of that, we're entering one of the largest cycles that affects evolution, the magnetic reversal. So that's going to happen over the next several decades while the bond super grand minimum occurs and life as you know it will change. And we implore you to start adapting now. Self-reliance comes from failure. You have to fail to succeed because you cannot succeed without failure. The only way you know what to do right is to do it wrong first, and to learn from your experience. The climate revolution is a great start. The grand solar minimum. If you don't know about the science, this breaks it down for the layman. It gives you links to all of the science. We're not making it up. We want you to check your sources. Dubine, Porter, and others have checked their sources. We've been checking them for years. We're doing this for you. We want you to be prepared, not scared. We want you to adapt and thrive. Get the book. Check out David Dubine's channel, Adapt 2030, if you haven't. It's linked below. Check him out on Patreon. He is one of the most prolific bloggers on the topic. He has a radio channel. Do you want to shoot out all your resources for the folks right now, Dave, before we close up?
I got the regular Facebook, Mini Ice Age. I got the Twitter, Adapt 2030. Now, these channels, along with YouTube, are very, they're not so kind to free speech, but other platforms such as Brighteon, which is Mike Adams' video site, I'm moving all my channel over there as a backup. BitChute as well, free speech platform, I'm moving everything over there. But I think the number one channel to move that's going to evolve in the future is going to be Brighteon, because Mike is very, very fervent that anything you want to say goes on that channel uncensored. So I think that's the direction we're going to really need to go to try to get true information. Secondly, moving over to Minds, M-I-N-D-S, is the Facebook equivalent, and also Gab. I'm already on Gab. I've been there for a couple of years, and it's the alternative to Twitter. So if you're looking for other alternatives to this controlled social media landscape, take a look over at those where I'm also gravitating massive amounts of my information over to. I am going to keep the Facebook up because a lot of people still go there. I am going to keep the Twitter up because a lot of people go there. But think about the new platforms yourselves if you're going to start something, because that's the spring mushroom that's coming up with all these new regulations possibly going to be put on top of the tech companies for censorship and monopoly. There's going to be a lot of shakeup. So these new other smaller platforms that are evolving, I think, are going to take over. Think about MySpace. Where is it now? It's not. I guarantee the same thing's going to happen with Facebook in the future. You go, oh, yeah, we'll be talking about 10 years from now going, you used to have a Facebook profile? Yeah, dude, I did. But we've all moved over to something else like Minds. It's a cryptocurrency-based platform. Steemit, also I'm on there. Steemit, it's a more written article type of thing. Medium as well, Mini Ice Age. So I'm trying to put out the written content with the PDFs of each video I'm doing to lock it in the blockchain so it cannot be altered. And when you want to do your own research, you can go back to unaltered data and find it, because the shenanigans that are being pulled right now, every time something doesn't fit the narrative of what they said with the warming or whatever, they change the data. Well, I'm not going to play the game. I'm putting out the data that I state is the data right now. You can call me on my reputation on it if you want, but I'm putting it in the blockchain to lock it in there so it can be altered. So if you want to come back in 5 years and other venues have gone down, You can find it in the blockchain. So this is the kind of, when you say prolific, this is the direction I'm moving over to save this data for us all on the blockchain. So yes, I am working my best to try to do that. And the video programs on Revolution Radio, and I got that podcast, Mini Ice Age Conversations, which the new app for iTunes and Android will be out in a couple of weeks. I have my own app.
Sweet. It's and I can't thank you enough for getting yourself out here on the interwebs on all these protected sources. And folks, I know it's a lot to think about and listen about, but you need to be delving into these alternate sites like Steemit and Gab and BitChute, because and Brighteon, that Mike Adams' new site, because these sites are going to protect free speech. They're not going to eliminate and be able to censor people wholeheartedly. Like they took down all 1,400 of my videos just 3 months ago, demonetized them all, took them away from the algorithm and not a single view. And as soon as I'm remonetized, the views go back up to the same spot they were before, because they are in control of who gets to see this information. We need to take back control of the information we see. Free speech is not free if it's being censored. They want you to believe the oxymoron. We live in a world of opposites. Free speech is censored, and freedom is not free. So we implore you all to start migrating over to Steemit and Brighteon and BitChute and all those other alternate sites. Now, the only problem with the work that David and I do, it takes hours for us to put our stuff over there, and we get zero return. So literally, we're working hundreds of hours for pennies. It's like slave labor. So we must be doing something from the heart. Take it from the heart. Follow us over to these new venues. Protect yourself. Start learning how to grow food. Start learning about the science so you can defend yourself amongst the sheep that are all just going, bah! It's burning up, and we're all going to die. We all may die, but if we're self-resilient and self-reliant, then our new MySpace is our permaculture garden where we live. Make that your new space. We love each and every one of you, especially David Dubine. Be safe, David. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks, Diamond. And remember to pay your global tax, your global carbon tax. It's due at the end of the month. Remember that. The new bill's coming.